Calvin Klein Incorporated is an American fashion house established in 1968. It specializes in leather, lifestyle accessories, home furnishings, perfumery, jewelry, watches, and ready-to-wear. The company has substantial market share in retail and commercial lines as well as haute couture garments. The company was founded by designer Calvin Klein and his childhood friend Barry K. Schwartz. The company is headquartered in Midtown Manhattan, New York City. Table of Contents. This article contains 8 sections. These sections are Section 1, History. Section 2, Products and Marketing. Section 3, Designers. Section 4, Corporate. Section 5, Controversies. Section 6, See Also. Section 7, References. Section 8, External links. This article has been provided with an information box containing material of interest to the reader. The information box has the following information. At the beginning is an image of Calvin Klein's current logo as of the year 2020. Below the image, the following information is provided. Type, subsidiary. Industry, apparel, perfume, and fashion. Founded, 1968. Founder, Calvin Klein. Headquarters, New York City, United States. Area served, worldwide. Key people, Steve Schiffman, Chief Executive Officer, Jean Gosselin, Chief Financial Officer, and Raf Simons, Chief Creative Officer. Number of employees, 1,001 to 5,000 in 2015. Parent, Philips Van Heusen, 2002 to the present day. Website, calvinklein.com. Included below the information box is an image of a Calvin Klein store located in the Fairview Mall in Toronto, Canada. Section 1, History. Section 1, Subsection 1, The Early Years. In 1968, Calvin Klein founded Calvin Klein Limited, a coat shop in the York Hotel in New York City, with $10,000. The first Calvin Klein collection was a line of, quote, youthful, understated coats and dresses, unquote, featured at the New York City store Bonwit Teller. In September of 1969, Klein appeared on the cover of Vogue magazine. Section 1, Subsection 2, 1970s. By 1971, Klein had added sportswear, classic blazers, and lingerie to his women's collection. In 1973, he received his first Coty American Fashion Critics Award for his 74-piece womenswear collection, the youngest recipient at that time. Klein won the award again in 1974 and 1975. By 1977, annual revenues had increased to $30 million, equivalent to $127 million in 2020, and Klein had licenses for scarves, shoes, belts, furs, sunglasses, and bed sheets. Klein and Schwartz were making $4 million each. After the company signed licenses for cosmetics, jeans, and menswear, Klein's annual retail volume was estimated at $100 million, equivalent to $422 million in 2020. In 1978, Klein claimed sales of 200,000 pairs of his famous jeans the first week they were on the market. By 1981, Fortune figured Klein's annual income at $8.5 million. In the mid-1970s, he had created a designer jeans craze by putting his name on the back pocket. Klein's design assistant at the time, Jeffrey Banks, has claimed credit for the logo garments, stating that he had the logo from a press folder silk-screened onto the sleeve of a brown t-shirt as a present for Klein. The gift was assumed by Schwartz to be part of the upcoming line, and similar logo shirts formed the uniform of the front-of-house staff at Klein's next catwalk show, leading to buyer demand. In the late 1970s, the company also made attempts to set up its own fragrance and cosmetics lines, but soon withdrew from the market with big financial losses. Section 1, Subsection 3, 1980s. In the 1980s, as the designer jeans frenzy reached its all-time high, Calvin Klein introduced a highly successful line of boxer shorts for women, and a men's underwear collection which would later gross $70 million in a single year. The American market of men's underwear was changed, from one where most men's underwear was white, purchased in packs of 3 by a, quote, wife, mother, or girlfriend when they needed to be, unquote, to one where, quote, the American male cares about the brand of something few ever see, unquote. Growth continued through the early 80s. The licensing program, which brought in $24,000 when it was initiated in 1974, equivalent to $124,421 in 2019, had royalty income of $7.3 million 10 years later, equivalent to $17.96 million in 2020. That year, worldwide retail sales were estimated at more than $600 million, equivalent to $1,476.55 million in 2020. Klein's clothes were sold through 12,000 stores in the United States and were available in 6 other countries through licensing deals, namely Canada, the United Kingdom, Ireland, Australia, New Zealand, and Japan. His annual income passed $12 million, equivalent to $29.53 million in 2020. Financial problems increased pressure from all sides. Disagreements with the licensee of the menswear line and its disappointing sales, as well as an enormous employee turnover, both within Calvin Klein and its licensing partners, led to the first rumors that Calvin Klein Industries, as the company had been known by then, was up for sale. And indeed, in late 1987, it was said that the sale of the company to Triangle Industries, a container manufacturer, had only failed because of the crashing stock market. Section 1, Subsection 4, 1990s. Although the company almost faced bankruptcy in 1992, Calvin Klein managed to regain and increase the profitability of his empire throughout the later 1990s, mainly through the success of its highly popular menswear and fragrance lines, as well as the CK sportswear line. During his 1990 to 1995 stint as Calvin Klein's head of menswear design, John Varvatos pioneered a type of men's underwear called boxer briefs, a hybrid of boxer shorts and briefs. Made famous by a series of 1992 print ads featuring Marky Mark Wahlberg, they have been called, quote, one of the greatest apparel revolutions of the century, unquote. Klein was named America's Best Designer for his minimalist, all-American designs in 1993, and it came as a surprise in 1999 when it was announced that Calvin Klein Industries was again up for sale. Planning to expand its business, the company had been approached by 2 luxury goods companies, Louis Vuitton Moet Hennessy and Pinot Printemps Rideout, to join Calvin Klein, but nothing resulted. Other potentials, like Tommy Hilfiger Corporation and Italy's Holding dei Partecipazioni, proved to be similar disappointments because of Calvin Klein Incorporated's steep price tag of supposedly $1 billion. After 7 months and no potential buyer, Klein announced that his empire was not on the market anymore. The company would never manage to go public, which had supposedly been Klein's plan. Section 1, Subsection 5, 2002 to present. Acquisition by Philips Van Heusen. Included in this section is an image of Calvin Klein's former logo from 1975 to 2017. In mid-December of 2002, Calvin Klein Incorporated was sold to Philips Van Heusen Corporation, whose then CEO, Bruce Klatsky, was the driving force behind the deal, for about $400 million in cash, $30 million in stock, as well as licensing rights and royalties linked to revenues over the following 15 years that were estimated at $200 million to $300 million. The sale also included an ongoing personal financial incentive for Klein, based on the future sales of the Calvin Klein brand. Philips Van Heusen outbid VF Corporation, the maker of Lee and Wrangler jeans, which had also been interested in the jeans, underwear, and swimwear business of Calvin Klein that had been controlled by Warnaco Group, maker of Speedo swimwear in the United States, since 1997. The deal with Phillips Van Heusen did not include these businesses, and they remained with Warnaco. Unable to pay debts from acquisitions and licensing agreements, and due to bad publicity by a later dismissed lawsuit with Calvin Klein over selling licensed products to retailers other than agreed upon with Calvin Klein, Warnaco had filed for Chapter 11 protection in mid-2001, but eventually emerged from bankruptcy in February of 2003. The transaction between Calvin Klein and Phillips Van Heusen was financially supported by Apex Partners Incorporated, a New York private equity firm, which is said to have made a $250 million equity investment in Phillips Van Heusen convertible preferred stock, as well as a $125 million 2-year secured note, all in exchange for seats on the board of Phillips Van Heusen. Calvin Klein Incorporated thus became a wholly owned subsidiary of Phillips Van Heusen. In the beginning, Klein himself, who was included as a person in the 15-year contract he had signed with Phillips Van Heusen, remained creative head of the collections, but then continued as an advisor, consulting creative director, to the new company from 2003 on, and has since been more withdrawn from the business. Barry K. Schwartz was said to concentrate on his role as chairman of the New York Racing Association, a horse racing club. The current president and chief operating officer of the Calvin Klein Incorporated division within Phillips Van Heusen are Tom Murray, who had filled this position already before the acquisition. Upon the acquisition of Calvin Klein, Phillips Van Heusen announced plans of launching a new men's sportswear collection that rivals Ralph Lauren's collection. This line is produced by Van Heusen. With the fall 2006 collection runway presentations in New York City, Calvin Klein Incorporated inaugurated an 8,600 square foot, 800 meter square showroom space that can seat up to 600 people on the ground floor of 205 West 39th Street in Times Square South, where Calvin Klein has been headquartered since 1978. In a 2010 report, Phillips Van Heusen, who manages the ready-to-wear activities, had estimated sales of $4.6 billion of Calvin Klein products. In February of 2013, Warnaco Group was acquired by Phillips Van Heusen, which united Calvin Klein formal, underwear, jeans, and sportswear lines. Section 2. Products and Marketing. Section 2, Subsection 1. Product and Brand History. Included in this section is a list of the most visible brand names in the Calvin Klein portfolio. Item 1. Calvin Klein 205W39 NYC. Black Label, Upscale, Top-End Designer Line. Item 2. CK Calvin Klein. Gray Label, recently repositioned as Bridge Collection Line. Licensed to Warnaco Group through at least 2044. Phillips Van Heusen acquired Warnaco Group in February of 2013. Item 3. Calvin Klein. White Label, Basic Fashion, Better Sportswear Line. Item 4. Calvin Klein Sport. Sports version of the White Label line for Macy's. Item 5. Calvin Klein Jeans. Denim wear line, licensed to Warnaco Group through at least 2044. Item 6. Calvin Klein Home. High-end bedding, towel, bath rug, and accessory collections. Item 7. The Khaki Collection. Youthful medium to high-end bedding, towel, bath rug, and accessories. Discontinued in 2008. Item 8. Calvin Klein Golf. Launched in late 2007. Item 9. Calvin Klein Underwear. Underwear collections. Licensed to Warnaco Group through at least 2044. Item 10. CK1 Lifestyle Brand. Fragrance, underwear, and jeans. Launched in 2007. Item 11. Calvin Klein Watches and Jewelry. Watches launched in 1997, jewelry in 2004. Fragrances. Calvin Klein has various lines of perfumes and colognes, including Obsession and Eternity. Until May of 2005, their perfumes and the corresponding fragrance lines were maintained by Calvin Klein Cosmetics Company, abbreviated as CKCC, a Unilever company. Cosmetics giant Coty Incorporated of New York bought the fragrance licensing agreements from Unilever. Advertising. Included in this section is an image of 4 models posing in Calvin Klein underwear and clothing. The image is captioned, Calvin Klein Models. The early ads were shot by Bruce Weber and Richard Avedon. One of his male underwear models, Mark Wahlberg, went on to fame as hip-hop star Marky Mark, launching himself into the Hollywood scene to become a current actor. Another Hollywood star first appearing in Calvin Klein advertisements is Antonio Sabato Jr. Calvin Klein employed Kate Moss at the start of her career in the early 1990s, and in 2002 after allegations of cocaine use. Other models who have appeared in advertisements early in their careers are Natalia Vodyanova and Toni Garn. Currently, Calvin Klein uses Shawn Mendes, Tyson Bellew, and Laura Stone, and in the past has also used Christy Turlington, Jerry Hall, Patty Hansen, Tom Hintnaus, Travis Fimmel, Doutzen Kroos, Minnie Anden, Garrett Neff, Sean O'Pry, Edita Vilkevichute, Jamie Dornan, Lou Wen, and Edward Furlong. Actors such as Eva Mendes, Mehcad Brooks, Scarlett Johansson, Kellen Lutz, Andie MacDowell, Alexander Skarsgård, Zoe Saldana, Rita Ora, Rooney Mara, Lupita Nyong'o, Margot Robbie, Saoirse Ronan, Jake Gyllenhaal, and Diane Kruger have also been chosen to model for the brand. Swedish footballer Freddie Ljungberg starred in a series of adverts for the company. Recently, singer Justin Bieber appeared in advertising for Calvin Klein's underwear range, as did fashion model Kendall Jenner. In 2017, Solange Knowles became the face of the campaign Arm Music, #MyCalvins. On July 16th of 2018, Saoirse Ronan and Lupita Nyong'o were announced as the faces of Raf Simon's first fragrance for the brand, named Women. They also have experimented with emerging technologies. When advertising CK1 perfume in 1999, they placed email addresses in print advertisements targeted at teenagers. When these teens mailed these addresses, they would be placed on a mailing list that sent them mails with vague details about the models' lives, with fake details meant to make them more relatable. These mails came at unpredictable intervals and were supposed to give readers the feeling that they had some connection with these characters. Though the mailing lists were discontinued in 2002, the campaign has inspired several marketing tactics for movies and other retail products. In 2019, Calvin Klein featured an ad by Sarah Ray Vargas for plus-sized women. Branding. Like other fashion brands, Calvin Klein has established a monogram, the CK emblem. Licensees. Included in this section is a list of the top 3 licensees of Calvin Klein Incorporated as of 2012. Item 1. Warnaco Group. 40% of license royalties, which is, quote, around $100 million, end quote. Item 2. Coty. 12% of license royalties. Item 3. G3 Apparel Group. 14% of license royalties. Internet. In 2004, the company bought the domain name ck.com. Calvin Klein is one of the few corporations worldwide to own a 2-letter domain name. Section 3. Designers. When Calvin Klein was acquired by Phillips Van Heusen Corporation in 2003, Francisco Costa was appointed the women's creative director of Calvin Klein Collection. Costa had already worked with Klein directly before the founder's departure from the company, and had taken the director position in 2003. Italo Zoscelli, a former Jill Sander and Romeo Gigli designer, had collaborated with Calvin Klein for 6 seasons before he became head designer and men's creative director of the Calvin Klein Collection menswear line in spring of 2004. Kevin Kerrigan, an Englishman, was named the Global Creative Director of the CK Calvin Klein, Calvin Klein White Label, Calvin Klein Jeans, and Calvin Klein underwear brands and their related licensed products. Kerrigan had been with Calvin Klein since 1998. In April of 2016, it was announced that Francisco Costa and Italo Zucchelli would be leaving the company. In August of 2016, Calvin Klein Incorporated announced the appointment of Raf Simons as Chief Creative Officer of the brand, overseeing all aspects of design, global market and communications, and visual creative services. Mr. Simons assumed the creative strategy of the Calvin Klein brand globally across the company's ready-to-wear, bridge, sportswear, jeans, underwear, and home lines. Pierre Moulier was also announced as creative director, reporting directly to Mr. Simons and responsible for executing his creative and design vision for men's and women's ready-to-wear, bridge, and better apparel and accessories. It was also announced that Kevin Kerrigan resigned from the company for a creative role at Ralph Lauren. Simons' first collections debuted for the fall 2017 season. In December of 2016, it was announced that Amy Mellon would leave the company. In January of 2017, it was announced that Clément Bourgivin-Blackman would assume the role of Vice President of Design for Calvin Klein Home. In December of 2018, it was announced that Raf Simons had parted from Calvin Klein after only 2 years at the company. Section 4. Corporate. Section 4, Subsection 1, Stores. Included in this section is a list of stores operated by Calvin Klein Incorporated. Item 1. Calvin Klein Collection. In the late 1990s, the company opened elegant Calvin Klein Collection stores in Paris, Seoul, and Taipei, and ultra-high-end CK Calvin Klein stores in Hong Kong, Milan, and Kuwait City. As of today, there is only one Calvin Klein Collection store operated by Calvin Klein Incorporated. It is located in New York City. Out of the 2 Calvin Klein Collection stores that existed in the United States, the Dallas location in Highland Park Village, which had been open for 20 years, was closed in mid-2005. The only international location, in Paris, was closed by Philips Van Heusen in March of 2006. The New York store, which serves as the company's flagship store at 654 Madison Avenue, remains open still today. Partners maintain Calvin Klein Collection stores in Hong Kong, Shanghai, Mumbai, Seoul, Singapore, Kuala Lumpur, Bangkok, Dubai, and Qatar. Item 2. Calvin Klein, White Label. Specialty retail Calvin Klein stores, designed by New York architecture firm Lynch Eisinger Design, have been opened at Lenox Square in Atlanta, Beverly Center in Los Angeles, now closed down, Cherry Creek Mall in Denver, now closed down, Natick Collection in Natick, Massachusetts, closing down on July 25, 2010, the Mall at Partridge Creek in Michigan, now closed down, Aventura Mall in Aventura, Florida, and South Coast Plaza in Costa Mesa, California. An additional 8 stores also designed by Lynch Eisinger Design are set to open in 2008. There are also several Calvin Klein outlet stores, mostly located within factory outlet malls in the United States, that sell white label sportswear and sometimes the Calvin Klein white label at reduced prices but do not carry the collection lines. Item 3. Calvin Klein Jeans. Calvin Klein jeans stores exist around the globe. Among many other countries, in the United Kingdom, Germany, Greece, Russia, Brazil, Mexico, Croatia, Egypt, Chile, Argentina, India, the Philippines, Australia, and New Zealand. They also offer franchisee and opened in Santiago de Cali last year. Item 4. Calvin Klein Underwear. Signature Calvin Klein underwear boutiques can be found in Ljubljana, Buenos Aires, Cardiff as of April 2011, Mexico City, Edinburgh, Glasgow, Melbourne, Hong Kong, London, Manchester, Manila, New York City, Shanghai, Singapore, Frankfurt am Main, Munich, Toronto, Hatfield, and Burnaby, British Columbia. Item 5. Department stores. The major department stores in the United States, including Macy's, Lord & Taylor, and Nordstrom, as well as many small independent stores, carry the CK white label and/or jeans collections. Some high-end department stores, such as Bergdorf Goodman, Saks Fifth Avenue, and Neiman Marcus, also carry the Calvin Klein collection. Notable retailers in the United Kingdom offering Calvin Klein include stores such as John Lewis, Debenhams, and KJ Beckett. In Australia, the dominant retailer is Myer. Calvin Klein products are also found online, with particular internet focus on selling Calvin Klein underwear and fragrance. Section 6. Europe and Asia. In Europe, Calvin Klein is predominantly known for its underwear, accessories, and perhaps a collection business, rather than for the medium-priced sportswear lines which are available at select high-end retail stores. In Asia, there are also signature CK Calvin Klein stores that carry Diffusion line, also known as Grey Label, including women's wear, menswear, and accessories. Section 5. Controversies. In 1980, Richard Avedon photographed and directed a Calvin Klein jeans campaign that featured a 15-year-old Brooke Shields. Some of those advertisements were banned, including an infamous advert where Brooke asks, quote, "Do you want to know what comes between me and my Calvins? Nothing." End quote. The 1995 adverts promoting Calvin Klein jeans received criticism for being, quote, "kiddie porn," end quote. In August of 2012, Lululemon Athletica filed suit against Calvin Klein and supplier G3 Apparel Group for infringement of 3 Lululemon design patents for yoga pants. The lawsuit was somewhat unusual as it involved a designer seeking to assert intellectual property protection in clothing through patent rights. On November 20th of 2012, Lululemon filed a notice of voluntary dismissal in the Delaware courts based upon a private settlement agreement reached between the parties that would dismiss the suit. According to a Lululemon press release, quote, "Lululemon values its products and related intellectual property rights and takes the necessary steps to protect its assets when we see attempts to mirror our products." End quote. However, according to Chevalier's brand book Luxury Brand Management, Klein, quote, "is seldom involved in the design and the development of products bearing its name," end quote, and, quote, "all activities are subcontracted to licensees," end quote. In 2014, Klein was criticized for the designation of Mila Dalbizio in its Perfectly Fit line, which offended many women as it is made for plus sizes.